Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's willing to give Russia their occupied territory in exchange for NATO protection. Also, new details on Trump's tariff plan and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau bending the knee, flying down to meet with Trump at Mar-o-Lago, and the latest on Daniel Penny, the Marine veteran on trial in Manhattan who was railroaded for protecting innocent people on the subway. Big update there. We have the latest. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. President Donald Trump makes major progress on ending the war in Ukraine, holding secret meetings at Mar-a-Lago, successfully keeping the press completely out of the loop, holding calls with France, with the UK, coordinating with the State Department and CIA, of course also with Russia and Ukraine. And for some context, Trump wants peace. Trump wants to cut off the weapons and money train to Ukraine completely. He wants a unilateral ceasefire. In Trump's mind, this is a land skirmish halfway around the world that should have nothing to do with the United States. We've sent them $200 billion in U.S. tax dollars. 85% of all arms and funding going into this country are coming from the U.S. So the moment Trump cuts that ripcord, this war ends immediately, which is why Trump told Zelensky on Wednesday, if you refuse to come to the table, I'm halting all arms shipments and funds on January 20. Well, one day later, what happens? Zelensky comes out and agrees to start negotiations. So he fell in line quickly. But Russia's not waiting for Trump. They've been expanding their buffer zone in Ukraine, and Putin, he really does have the upper hand here. It's why Trump likely signed off on Biden's decision last week to allow Ukraine to use those long-range missiles, which his new special envoy to Ukraine, General Kellogg, confirmed on Fox News yesterday. What we're hearing, though, is Trump's set to announce a major peace plan to end this war. It involves ceding the land Russia currently occupies and offering Ukraine NATO protection or membership, probably protection. But it would be a real deal, right? A real treaty or something to that effect. Here's Zelensky confirming for the first time ever yesterday that he'd be willing to cede the territory to Russia in exchange for NATO membership. Roll the tape.
We begin this hour with breaking news. Volodymyr Zelensky has suggested that he's prepared to give up some parts of Ukraine to Russia for the time being, so long as there is a ceasefire and his country is given NATO membership. The Ukrainian president was speaking to our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey, in his first interview with the UK media since Donald Trump's election win. Mr. Trump has vowed to end the war in Ukraine and boasted that he could do so within 24 hours of coming to power. Well, in a moment, we'll speak live to Stuart Ramsey in Kyiv, as well as getting international reaction. But first, let's hear what President Zelensky had to say.
Well, one alternative, perhaps, again, this is reported from the United States, and it's fairly simple, really, is that Ukraine joins NATO, but Russia takes control and keeps the land that it has to date. Would that be a possibility?
Ніхто не пропонував нам бути в НАТО.
No one has offered us to be in NATO with just one part or another part of Ukraine.
Закінчити гарячу стадію.
That's for once.
Факт.
The fact is that it is a solution to stop the hot stage of the war, because we can just give the NATO membership to the part of Ukraine that is under our control.
Факт. Можна було б, ніхто не пропонував.
Yes, it could be possible, but no one offered.
Треба робити.
But the invitation must be given to Ukraine within its internationally recognized border.
Ви не можете давати тільки частині.
You can't give invitation to just one part of a country. Why? Because thus you would recognize that Ukraine is only that territory of Ukraine and the other one is Russia.
Тому я і сказав, Юридично ми не маємо права
So legally, by law, we have no right to recognize the occupied territory as territory of Russia.
І тут не можна помилятись в цьому.
And here
Але
we must not
якщо
make any
хочемо
mistake.
зупинити гарячу стадію війни,
But if we want to stop the hot stage of the war,
зонтик, амбрелу,
we should take under NATO umbrella the territory of Ukraine that we have under our control.
швидко. А далі вже
That's what we need to do fast. And then Ukraine can get back the other part of its territory diplomatically.
Ось що я сказав, що таку пропозицію
So, and this proposal has never been considered by Ukraine because no one has ever offered that to us officially.
не запропонував.
We
Юридично
can't, by law, recognize our territory, Ukrainian territory, under occupation of Russia as Russian. That is impossible. That is against the constitution of Ukraine.
Конституцію України.
I understand completely your position. It is interesting, though, because it seems to me you have moved to a point that if you could get your NATO membership, you would have accept that we could be moving into a ceasefire and potential talks, peace talks, and at some point in the future you would consider diplomatically how to get your land back. That's quite a big step, because you're never going to accept that it's Russia's, but as you say, physically they will hold it. But it could bring the war to a close.
A lot of different countries proposed a ceasefire. So the question is, ceasefire where?
And you know, however this war ends, you're going to have happy people, you're going to have angry people. The trick is to have both sides equally unhappy. That's how you know you've made a fair deal. We'll see what happens, but what matters is that the war stop. The United States stops sending our money, our treasure, to Ukraine. In another story, Republican Senator John Cornyn of Texas is learning what happens when you mess around and find out. This according to the Dallas News. Ken Paxton, former Attorney General of Texas, considering running for Cornyn's Senate seat, a real primary challenger who can definitely win. John Cornyn is one of those rhinos in Senate Republican leadership working under Mitch McConnell for years to thwart the MAGA movement and has publicly stabbed Donald Trump in the back twice over the last 3 weeks. First by running for Senate Majority Leader after Rick Scott was clearly who his voters wanted, and second, by joining Mitch McConnell to kill the Matt Gaetz nomination. Now he's about to lose his Senate seat. Let this be a wake-up call to the rest of the Republican senators who think MAGA's all bark and no bite. There's some of them out there, because you will be primaried. If you stand in the way of your voters, if you do the opposite of what you were elected to do, you will lose your job. So thank you, Ken Paxton. In another story, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau flies to Mar-o-Lago yesterday to kiss the ring, meeting with President Trump before he's even sworn in. And by the way, this is what leadership looks like, right? Everything moves to you, moves around you. Let's not forget, though, who this man is and why he flew down there yesterday in 2017 during Trump's first term. He was caught on camera mocking Donald Trump with other world leaders. He's a smug SOB. Watch.
Now, in a huddle alongside Princess Anne and Boris Johnson, Justin Trudeau and Emmanuel Macron were caught discussing a 40-minute press conference. President Trump was not mentioned by name, but he had held a lengthy press conference with Mr. Macron earlier that day. The leaders are in London for NATO meetings.
Well, Trudeau's likely on his way out. Canada's tired of him. The Conservative opposition leader up in Canada may be the next Prime Minister soon. And this trip came just days after Trump reaffirmed his plan to smack a 25% tariff on all goods coming from Canada and Mexico unless they crack down on illegal border crossings and on fentanyl trafficking. Here's what happened in Canada after Trump made that announcement. Watch this.
President Trump had been saying that he would do this. He was elected 3 weeks ago. You'd think the Prime Minister would have been furiously planning and preparing, meeting with the premiers and talking about a counter plan during that time. And now we learn that since the threat happened, he's come up with exactly one response: a Zoom call. He's going to hold a Zoom call tomorrow. Of course, the media is absolutely captivated by this development. There's going to be a Zoom call between 11 or 12 politicians, and somehow this is going to solve the problem. We need a real plan, real action that will defend our economy and our security, and most of all, to put Canada first.
I spoke with Donald Trump yesterday evening, talked about how important it was for us to work together to solve some of the challenges we're facing as a continent, as countries, but also work to grow our economy, protect our workers on both sides of the border. This is the responsible, methodical approach we're taking as we move forward, while our opponent falls back on slogans and fear.
He spoke with the incoming president, and moments later, Mr. Trump put out a tweet slapping a 25% tariff on Canada. So that worked about as well as the Prime Minister's efforts on Buy America and softwood lumber, which continue to be penalized, even though the previous Conservative government got both of those things lifted. Now move over to drugs. The Prime Minister's disastrous legalization and liberalization of drugs has the Americans worried, in addition to costing 47,000 deaths in Canada. Where's the plan to stop the drugs and keep our border open to trade?
Once again, the leader of the opposition is just making stuff up. I clearly spoke with the President of the United States an hour and a half after he put out his suggestion on tariffs. The reality is we're going to continue to work constructively with the incoming administration to protect Canadian jobs, to protect Canadian growth, to take the responsible approach that isn't steeped in partisanship, that pulls together the Team Canada approach that stands up for Canadians instead of throwing our arms up and saying all is broken like the leader of the opposition.
Well, that's even worse. The statement went out promising tariffs before they even got a chance to speak. It's kind of like him backing down on Buy America and backing down on softwood lumber, Mr. Speaker.
Look, Trump is deadly serious about tariffs. He believes it's the best negotiating tool a president has, and he's right. But the reason why it's such a good tool is because he's not bluffing. He'd gladly slap tariffs on these countries to benefit the United States, to benefit our manufacturing base here at home, on products that are made here at home. He understands that. It's a huge difference. He understands that it's pointless, absolutely pointless to tariff stuff that we don't make. In 1948, we made a rule called the Marshall Plan to help rebuild these other countries after World War II. It allowed them to tariff us, but not them. That's how powerful the U.S. economy is, that we let these other countries do that for 80 years. But today, why is it that Germany, Japan, still to this day have those tariffs in place? 100% tariffs. Why? Why would we? Why should we allow them to tariff us 100% on cars, on other products, but we aren't allowed to tariff them? It makes no sense. It makes zero sense. And Trump fully, completely understands this, and he's about to remedy it. In another story, the trial of Daniel Penny, the Marine vet who was protecting innocent passengers on the subway in Manhattan last year, the guy who respectfully put a homeless drunk guy in a chokehold to protect the other passengers. You all know about the case. The jury was off for the holiday last week. The defense rested its case. Monday, though, in just 2 days from now, the jury begins deliberations. Look, I think they're going to find him not guilty. Let me rephrase, actually. I absolutely hope they find him not guilty. Will they? I think so. If it's a fair jury, they will, but this is a politically charged case. You turn on MSNBC and they call him a racist thug, which is as far from the truth as possible. Even the witnesses told responding police he was protecting them and acting in self-defense, and he did all of it with the utmost respect for the homeless man. Watch.
Good cheer.
Just been belligerent on that one.
Very, very.
The whole train was freaked out. He was either going to like pull a gun, a knife, or like.
He said, I'm willing to die. I'm willing to die. You know, I'm willing to get killed.
They really good. I mean, I'm from Whitney.
The guy in the tan did take him down like very respectfully and just like held him down. He wasn't like just okay.
I think that the guy just totally drove down.
Now, the DA prosecuting this case is Alvin Bragg, the same AG who charged Donald Trump in the hush money case with Stormy Daniels. So you know how fair he is, where his politics are, and it's likely why he's even bringing charges in the first place with this case. We're going to bring you an update next week as the jury announces their decision. Let's hope it's a quick not guilty verdict. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.